Hi, my name is Michelle Sheppard. I'm a presenter on Joy FM of Mission Mates and Trans POV. Today, I have a special guest coming from the US. Her name is Sabreena Lachlainn, and she is going to be the first trans woman to take an attempt to sail around the world. Welcome, Sabreena.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're attempting to do a solo trip around the world and be the first transgender person to do this.
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
Like, where do you even begin with a feat like this?
Well, it starts with the funding.
Okay.
I mean, 80% of sailing solo nonstop around the world is getting to the start line. The
Okay.
money that's involved, the sponsors, because you need equipment sponsors and people that can provide the freeze-dried foods that you're going to need, because it's all about weight with what I'm trying to do, and meaning the weight of the boat and the limited amount of space you have on board a vessel, such as what I'm going to use to sail around the world. So everything is budgeted. You only have a finite amount of resources available. So to get all the hardware and equipment that you're going to need to make repairs on the boat at sea, along with being able to provide food and sustenance for 4.5 months.
Your attempt is to take off here from Melbourne, Victoria in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and end back here as well.
That's correct.
Wow. Like my brain is, that's just so awesome.
Uh-huh.
Where did the idea come from to do this?
I started watching a TV show that, in fact, you and I have talked about this before, about
Not
West
Gilligan's
Wind.
Island, yes.
West Wind, that was a children's TV show from the 70s. It was about about a family that sailed around the world to these different islands, and that's really where it started for me. And then watching the America's Cup trials going on in San Diego in '87 when I was stationed in the Marine Corps down there. And then later, it was really refueled in 2010, towards the end of my women's professional football career, watching Jessica Watson and Abby Sunderland of the U.S. kind of go head-to-head in an attempt to be the first or the youngest of their generation to go solo nonstop around the world. So, and that really fueled it for me and made me realize when my career was over, I needed that next big challenge, because my whole life has always been about what's next.
Yep.
And I always loved sailing, and it just seemed to me that to go from a team sport like football to throwing myself into sailing and doing something that would help my community as well as achieving my dream, that's what meant a lot to me. And I felt like, okay, that was the next logical step.
Yeah, and you own a couple boats back home yourself.
I do.
And you and I were talking about a trip you took with a friend, and you were sailing around one of the Great Lakes up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the difference between, say, sailing in a body of water like that and in an ocean?
In some ways, sailing on the Great Lakes makes you, I think in a way, a better sailor in a roundabout sort of way. And it's nothing against open ocean sailing, because it has its own challenges, and the ocean will kill you just as quick as the lakes would. But I think with the Great Lakes, they are inland seas. They are enormous in their own right. But because there's a fairly small distance between shoreline to shoreline on these lakes, and they're fairly shallow for the most part, that waves will stack up in heavy storms. So it's like you get these sawtooth waves with deep troughs that are very narrow. There's very little distance between each wave crest. And whereas in an ocean, yeah, you can get that. But more in open ocean sailing, you have the giant rollers, and you can more or less surf down these waves with the type of boat I'm going to use, versus these sawtooth type waves that you get picked up on the crest, and you just literally free fall into the trough.
Wow.
And it will test your skills and your nerve as a sailor on the Great Lakes for sure. It was a great training ground.
So how many people have actually sailed around the world?
In total, I believe it's roughly between like 225 and 250 total people. As far as women are concerned, there's only been a dozen women ever do it in history.
And so you'd be number 13, but the specials be the gender diverse individual doing it.
Exactly.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
But what happens if you have any accidents or anything like that? So what happens along the way with that?
Well, because it's solo, nonstop, unassisted, there is no chase boat. You're completely on your own. The only thing you have is your satellite phone. You have your EPIRB. There will be 3. You have an EPIRB in the cockpit area. You have a PLB on your body, and then there's one you can set off manually down in the cabin. And so if worst came to worst and I had to have a rescue, I have a locator that will set off, that will be picked up around the world, and then it would just have to wait a rescue. If The engine on the boat isn't damaged, which is only to be used for powering the batteries to recharge everything if the solar panels aren't collecting enough energy for battery recharge. Then I'd be able to try and hopefully motor to a port and do a repair and then go back and finish the trip, even though it would now no longer be nonstop. But again, that's one of those where you're solely on your own and you've got to have the ability to think on the fly and do the things that are necessary for your survival. You're a shipwright, you're a sail maker because you're stitching sails, you're a mechanic because you're fixing the engine or whatever else is breaking on the boat. So you have to be a jack of all trades when you sail around the world. You've got to be able to do all these little things. You don't have to be great at it, just competent and be able to get it done to get you where you need to go.
To constitute around the world, do you have to go within certain oceans? Do you have to go like closer to the equator? Can you stay in the southern oceans and go around?
One of the prerequisites for a solo nonstop, for it to qualify as an official, is the distance has to be a minimum of 21,600 nautical miles. You have to traverse all 5 of the great southern capes, and you have to have crossed the equator twice, which means going over the equator and then coming back across. That qualifies. I'd have to sail at some point, turn north in the Pacific and go to like Kiribati, which is kind of the reference point for around the world sailing. You'd circumnavigate around Kiribati and then turn south for Cape Horn. So you'd have to clear Cape Horn, Cape Agulhas, which is the true Cape, not Cape of Good Hope is the false Cape in South Africa. Cape Agulhas is the true one. But you'd also round that as well. Then cross the Indian Ocean, and then you would go around Cape Lewin, and then you would do the Southwest Cape, or Southeast Cape, and then if you wanted to do New Zealand and go up and around and back down through Bass Strait, then you would go around the Southeast Cape as well.
Amazing. So if somebody wanted to go and actually contact you to make any donations or contact you to speak further about this journey you're going to be taking, how can they do that?
They can reach me through my website at www.sabrenalachlainn.com. We have my Instagram page and my Twitter and my Team Revolution Sailing Facebook page, and they're all linked together. So when I post to one, it goes to the other 2 media outlets as well.
And so you're currently looking for a suitable boat that can carry the journey?
Looking for a Class 40.
A Class 40.
Which is a racing yacht, more or less. Their bottoms are flat, like almost like a surfboard. They have watertight compartments. They're literally unsinkable.
Wow.
They have the long, narrow keel shaft, and then they have the bulb on the bottom. It's almost like a blade as far as the section for the keel bulb to attach to, and it's designed because they're designed for speed, whereas a traditional yacht will sit low in the water. These sit on the water and they surf the waves and they can move up to speeds of 22 to 24 knots under full sail. So that's a pretty good clip.
I was going to say, but I'm looking forward to just some of the photos you might take along that journey as well. That would be just amazing. So, look, Sabreena, I look forward to hearing more about this journey when you do take off. So are you looking to take off possibly in 2020? 2020,
we're hoping that we should have the funding and the boat available to sail out of Melbourne and give it a go.
Well, Sabreena, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me and sharing this. Do anyone listening please connect to Sabreena's website, sabrenalachlainn.com. Follow the journey. If you want to help contribute as well, that'd be amazing to help see our first transgender person take a trip like this. Well, my name is Michelle Sheppard. You have been watching Ben TV.